Morning, students. Welcome to English class. I hope you all are doing well. In today's English class, we are going to read our next chapter of literature, that is A Farmer's Greatest Treasure. Before starting the chapter, look at these two pictures. What is the main difference between the two? See carefully and then tell. How important are our farms to us? How do you think farmers deal with problems like flood and famine? Discuss in class. You can also share in the comment section. Okay, let's begin the chapter. That is A Farmer's Greatest Treasure, written by Hema Pande. We are hungry. What shall we eat? There's nothing anywhere. All over the village, people were in distress. Distress means a painful situation. Someone is saying that we don't know now. Who is saying this? We are hungry. What shall we eat? There is nothing anywhere. There is nothing to eat anywhere. All over the village, people, they were in a very painful situation. How gaunt and haggard they had all become. With drawn faces and trembling legs, they walked around digging for roots, searching for wild berries to control their hunger. Now, the story about some village where people were suffering from lack of food. They were in painful situation. All over the village, how gaunt and haggard they had all become. Because of lack of food, they had nothing to eat. They became very thin. Gaunt means very thin because of lack of food, and haggard means they were looking ill and very tired because they all were suffering. They didn't have any food to eat. With drawn faces. Drawn faces means their faces looked like as they were very tired or ill. And trembling legs. Trembling legs means as if they were affected some with great fear. Trembling means affected with great fear. They walked around digging for roots. Digging for roots means they were removing the soil and looking for roots. That's maybe somewhere they will find some roots. Searching for wild berries to control their hunger. And they were searching for some wild berries. Berries means it's kind of fruit. They were searching for a fruit to control their hunger. They wanted something to eat. That's why they are digging the soil, digging for roots. It had been such a bad year. Just when the wheat was ripening, yellow and tall, it had rained heavily every day. Although the farmers tried to save all they could, much of the golden wheat had turned black and rotted away. Now, what has happened? During that year, it was such a bad year. When the wheat was ripening, ripening means when it was just about to grow or to become ripe, yellow and tall, it had rained heavily every day. Just because of the rain, the wheat was rotted away. Although the farmers tried to save all they could, the farmers tried their best to save the wheat. Much of the golden wheat still had turned black and rotted away. Because of the rains, wheat turned black and rotted away. Rotted means to decay. It was decayed. But when it was time to plant the rice seedlings, the rains stopped completely. Now, what happened? When it was time to plant rice seedlings. Rice is the plant which needs a lot of water, and wheat is the plant. If it will rain during the wheat plantation vegetation, it can decay the whole wheat. The rain stopped completely. When the rice seedlings were planted, the rains stopped completely. Not a drop of rain fell. Rice demand a lot of water, but when they planted rice, not a drop of rain fell. The tender green stalks shriveled up and insects ate up the rest. What has happened? The tender green stalks. Stalks means it's a stem, a part of plant that supports another, or we can say it is a stem of the plant. The tender green stalks shriveled up and insects ate up the rest. Shriveled up means it got dried up, and rest whatever was left, it was ate up by the insects. So when autumn came, There was neither wheat nor rice in all the villages for miles around, and the people were starving. Now, what happened? When autumn came, there was neither wheat nor rice in all the villages for miles around, and the people were starving. They all were so hungry they didn't have either wheat or rice to eat. They didn't have anything to eat. In one of the worst affected villages, there lived a farmer affectionately called Mausha San. He, his wife, and son Isu tried to manage as best as they could. Now, in one of the worst affected villages, in all the villages, they were the same problems. People didn't have wheat, they didn't have rice to eat. So, in one of the worst affected villages, there lived a farmer affectionately called Mausha San. He, his wife, and son Isu, they tried to manage as best as they could. One day, Isu went inside their empty barn that once used to overflow with grain, searching for a shovel to dig for roots. Now, one day, Isu he went into their empty barn. Barn, it's a large building for the storage of farm products, where farmers they keep their farm products. It's a large building for the storage of those products. He went there. Isu went there in their barn that once used to overflow with grain, searching for a shovel to dig for roots. He was searching for a shovel. Shovel, it's a tool to dig out something. It is a tool to dig out something. He looked here and there, but not finding it, went further inside. He looked here and there, but he could not find it. He could not find the shovel, and he further went inside. Groping about in the dark, he suddenly stumbled against something large and heavy. Now, what happened? When he was going inside, groping means feeling with hands, especially when nothing can be seen easily. When he was not able to see with his eyes, he was trying to find out with his hands. So, in the dark, he was trying to find that shovel with his hands. He suddenly stumbled against something large and heavy. Stumble means something that when he was finding that, he found something. His hand found an obstacle. He could feel something else that was very large and heavy. Ara, what's this? He cried, astonished on discovering a big, full sack. Opening it, he pushed his hand inside. Now, he said that, Ara, what's this? He cried. He said it very loudly. Astonished. Astonished means he was very surprised. He was greatly surprised. On discovering a big, full sack, he found there a big, full sack. Opening it, he pushed his hand inside. He opened it, and when he pushed his hand inside, wheat, wheat, he shouted, thrilled and amazed, as large grains of wheat slipped through his fingers. Now, what happened? He could feel the wheat. He could feel that in that sack, wheat was there. He shouted. He was so thrilled, he was so amazed that as large grains of wheat slipped through his fingers. Father must have forgotten that he had a huge sackful of the finest wheat stored away in the barn, thought a delighted Isu. Now Isu, he was very delighted, he was very happy, and he thought in his mind that maybe my father has forgotten about this wheat, that we are having a huge sack full of the finest wheat stored away in the barn. In our large building where we keep the storage of our farm products, our father has kept these sack full of finest wheat. No, we needn't go hungry, at least for a few days. Oh, what a feast there will be tonight. Now he was very happy and he said that, now we will not be hungry, at least for a few days. Oh, what a feast there will be tonight. Now he was thinking that feast. Feast means plenty of food. He was thinking that finally today we will have plenty of food. Isu ran to his father. Now he quickly ran to his father. Father, he shouted joyously, I have just found a sack of wheat you stored in the barn. Now he told his father, I have just found the sack of wheat that you have stored in the barn and forgot. And I think you forgot about that. Let's grind it at once. Grind means crush it. Let's crush it and use it. We can eat well for some days at least. Now he said that okay, at least we will have something to eat for a few days because we don't have anything to eat right now. Mausha sprang up quickly. Sprang up means it's the past tense of spring, to jump up. Here it means that he suddenly jumped up. Quickly. No, no, Isu, not that wheat. Now he told his son, no, no, dear son, not that wheat. He cried, pulling his son's arm. Listen to me. Now he almost cried very loudly, and he pulled his son's arm and said that, listen to me, no matter what happens, that grain must never be touched. Now he said that, "Ki whatever happened, that grain, you don't have to touch it. I had deliberately stored away my best wheat to be used for sowing the next crop. Those are grain seeds, Isu." Now he said that deliberately. Deliberately means to do something that is already planned. Means he knew that he already knew that something, if something like this happened, we must have wheat. And he did it on purpose. He did that. He stored away his best wheat to be used for sowing the next crop, so that whenever next season will come to grow the crops of wheat, he can use that, he can sow that finest wheat at that time. Those are grain seeds, Isu. Now he told his son that those are grain seeds, we cannot use them right now. But, stammered Isu, as tears of hunger and disappointment filled his eyes. Now Isu was so unhappy and he was almost crying. Tears of hunger and disappointment filled his eyes. He was so sad listening to this that we cannot use such finest wheat right now. Father, other farmers have eaten their last grain. Why can't we eat ours instead of suffering terribly every day? He wept. Now he said to his father that every other farmers, they have eaten their last grain. Means whatever grains they had, they have eaten all. And why can't we eat ours instead of suffering terribly every day? That why we have to suffer? And stammered here means that he couldn't speak. He was crying and he was stopping and then repetition to he was doing in his speaking. He couldn't speak properly. He was so filled with sorrow. And he said that, why can't we eat ours instead of suffering terribly every day? And he wept. He started weeping. That is all the more reason, my son, for not touching it, said Mausha softly. Now, Moshe softly told his son that that is all the more reason, that is why we are not touching that finest grain. It will be a far worse calamity than this famine if the fields of all farmers lie fallow just because they have no wheat seeds to plant. Now he said that this situation is going to become worse. Famine means it is an extreme scarcity of food. Now he said that it will be a far worse calamity. Calamity means that can cause great damage or a disaster like situation can arise. And he said that then this famine means an extreme scarcity of food. If the fields of all farmers lie fallow just because they have no wheat seeds to plant. And fallow means describe a field that is not planted with crops. Now he said that whatever we are facing right now, biggest calamity is going to come in the coming future that we all farmers have to face. And we will not be having any wheat seeds to plant. These are not just seeds, Isu, they are a farmer's greatest treasure. Now he is teaching his son that they are not just seeds, Isu, they are a farmer's greatest treasure. If a farmer robbed his own treasure, what would remain for him? He continued. Now he is telling very softly to his son that if a farmer will himself robbed his own treasure, what would remain for him? If a farmer will rob himself, what would remain for him? Nothing. I know you are hungry, but so is everyone else. Have patience, Isu. Soon these very seeds will feed not only you, but all the villagers. Now he said to his son that Have patience, Aisu, and soon these very seeds will feed not only you, but all the villagers. Hearing this, Aisu bowed his head in silence. Now, Aisu just bowed his head in silence in front of his father. Mausha was extremely miserable to see his only child grow weak and thin every day. Miserable means he was very comfortless. That he could see that his child was becoming so weak and thin every day because of scarcity of food. He poured half his share of watery gruel into Asu's bowl, pretending not to be hungry. And what he used to do, he used to give his own food to his son, pretending that I'm not hungry, you just have it. Gruel means it's a kind of thin food, usually made of oatmeal boiled in milk or water. Soon autumn came again, and it was time to sow the new crop of wheat. And now what happened? Autumn came again, and they had to sow the new crop of wheat. What shall we do? Cried the farmers. Where shall we get the seeds to sow our fields? Now the farmers were saying that what we have to do right now, we don't have seeds. What to do? How we can get the seeds to sow our fields? Mausha, old and weak, always lay in bed now. Now because he didn't have enough food, and whatever food they had, he used to give half of his food to his son, so he became very old and weak and always laying in his bed. But now suddenly he seemed to find new strength to shuffle along to farms and to the homes of the villagers. But somehow he managed to get up and show some courage, show some strength to shuffle along to farms. Shuffle means to walk by pulling one's feet slowly along the ground rather than lifting them because of weakness and tired. He was so weak and tired, but somehow he put his strength together, he put his courage together, and went to the farms and to the homes of the villagers. I have plenty of wheat seeds in my house. Tell all the farmers that they can take these for the fields, he said. Now he said that I have plenty of wheat seeds in my house. Tell all the farmers that they can take these for the fields, he said. Arigato, thank you, Mausha-san. Now it's a Japanese phrase because it's a story that is Japanese and can translate it into English by Hema Pande. So it's a arigato. It's a Japanese phrase that is used to express gratitude. It is a casual way of saying thank you. So he was saying thank you, Mausha-san. Thanks for saving us, cried the happy villagers, as their hearts overflowed with relief and hope. Now they had some relief and hope in their minds that they will have at least few wheat seeds to sow in their fields. Dragging the sack of precious white seeds out of the barn, Mausha doled it out to the delighted farmers. Now he dragged that sack of precious wheat seeds that he had kept out of the barn. Barn, as I told you, it's a large building for storage of farm products. Mausha doled it out. Doled it out means distributed that to everyone in small proportions. That wheat seeds he distributed to all the villagers in little proportion. And all the farmers, they were very happy. They were very delighted. This is a farmer's greatest treasure, so please don't waste a single grain, he said. Now he advised all the farmers that this is a farmer's greatest treasure. So please don't waste a single grain, he said. Closing the heavy barn door, he suddenly faltered and fell. Now, what happened when he was closing the heavy barn door? After that, he suddenly faltered and fell. He lost all his strength and just stopped moving and fell there. Mausha-san, cried the anxious farmers as they ran to pick him up. Now, all the farmers, they were terrified that what has happened to him. And the anxious farmers, they ran to pick him up, and they was saying his name. Water, screamed Aisu. My father has fainted. Now Aisu, he was also there, and he just screamed, water, my father has fainted. He has lost his consciousness. Just give some water. But it was of no use. In the arms of his son and surrounded by grief stricken farmers, Mausha, weakened by hunger, did not open his eyes again. Now, what happened? But that water was of no use because he was no more now. In the arms of his son and all the grief stricken farmers surrounded by them, Moshe, he was weakened. He was so weak because of hunger, he did not open his eyes again. He was a real farmer, cried the sad villagers. And all the sad villagers, they said it very loudly that he was a real farmer. He kept his own wheat seeds for us so that all the villagers may have crops for the next year. Now they were saying that he kept his own wheat seeds. He didn't feed himself, he didn't feed his family just to feed all of us. He kept his own wheat seeds for us so that all the villagers may have crops for the next year. Let's not forget him, for he has taught us the true value of a farmer's greatest treasure. Now they were appreciating the efforts of Mausha San, that let's not forget him, for he has taught us the true value of a farmer's greatest treasure. That he has told us that wheat, it is a farmer's greatest treasure, and we should value it. We should value his efforts. Soon it was spring, and wheat fields, green and lush, smiled under a bright blue sky. The barns of all the farmers overflowed once more with new grain. Now, soon it was spring again after the autumn, and wheat fields, they were green and lush. There was beautiful crop. They were smiling under the bright blue sky, all because of whom? Mausha San, because he kept his own finest wheat grain just to feed all the farmers, all the villagers. The barns of all the farmers overflowed once more with new grain, and all the farmers, they had barns, it were overflowing with new grains, all new grains, lush green new grains. So this was the story by Hema Pande. She was born in Bharatpur, Rajasthan, and she went to Japan initially to learn Japanese painting. She studied Japanese in Kolkata and found it extremely interesting, especially Japanese children's literature. Their traditional folk tales, her interest eventually inspired her to translate some of them into English and Hindi. So, this story, it's written by Hema Pandey, and it's a Japanese story which is translated into English by her. So this was the story that what is a farmer's greatest treasure? It's a wheat. So we should not waste a single grain of wheat because it's very important for us to sustain, to survive in this world. If you have any query, you can ask. Thank you so much and listen to the whole video.